Welcome to Everything's Not Black and White with your hosts, Lala and Brian.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We are super excited and honored to welcome Hady Mendez, an Amazon best-selling author, a sought-after Latina speaker, and the driving force behind Boldly Speaking, LLC. Through Hady's work, she has transformed professional experiences for countless women and people of color, coaching them to self-advocate, self-promote, and rise into leadership roles. Beyond her professional achievements, she is a creative soul who captures the world through street art photography. Hady, we're so excited to have you with us today. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you for having me, y'all. I'm glad to be here too.
Well, we are very excited to jump in and let our listeners know all about you. So your journey has been very, very inspiring, and it spans many diverse roles and impactful work. So what would you say are the personal experiences that have shaped you the most and what helped you be more of an advocate for women and people of color?
It definitely is my lived experience. And I would say that, I think about young Hady, not only in like school and college and those spaces, but even as a young professional. I didn't have a lot of people to look up to. I didn't have a lot of people that looked like me that were interested or invested in helping and supporting me and giving me advice and serving as mentors to me. And I think that more than anything else is really what inspires me to do the work that I do today, because I don't want other people to feel alone, and I don't want other people to feel like they're the only ones going through challenging times or difficult experiences, but
Yeah.
but that it's something that a lot of us are going through, or a lot of us have gone through.
Yeah.
And there's light on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that so much. I remember, even growing up, the only black women that were, quote unquote, in authority figures were ones in my home. So I didn't even
Mhm.
actually report to a black woman in a role until I was in my late 40s, and I'm in my early 50s now. So
Wow.
that is really a powerful statement about,
Hmm.
leadership and us having opportunities to be in those roles.
It's interesting from a white person's perspective. I've always had role models. I've always been able to look up and see someone who looks like me. And it wasn't until I met my wife. We've been married going on 18 years now. It wasn't until I met her that it was like the light bulb went off. Like, yeah, there was a lot of inequities and a lot of opportunities that were missed
Hmm.
because you didn't see that representation.
Hmm.
To change the subject a little bit, La spoke earlier on the introduction. She mentioned that you're a street art photographer as well. How does
Hmm.
this creative outlet influence your professional perspective and work in empowering others?
So street art, I'm gonna tell you how I kind of got started down that path because it's an interesting story, and then I'm gonna tell you how it relates or intersects with the work.
Uh-huh.
How I started doing this was that pretty much what I started doing it when I lived overseas. So I don't know if this was part of the intro, I can't remember, but I lived overseas for 2 years as an international volunteer. And it was around that time that I started taking photos.
Mm-hmm.
So when I lived down there, wherever, whatever country or city I was in, I was taking photographs. And there was a lot of street art. And when I came back to the States, I took on a job where I wasn't making a lot of money. So I needed to do things on the weekends or like things for entertainment value that didn't cost anything or were very low cost.
Mm-hmm.
And so going out and taking pictures on the street was very affordable because it was like zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't cost me anything to do it. And I could like follow like artists, and they were like, oh, we're doing a mural here, and now there's like this other mural show going on over there. And I would just, sometimes I wouldn't even take a train, so it was like zero cost.
Hmm.
And I would just go and take pictures, and my early pictures were not very good. I would even say my later pictures are not that great either. There's definitely an amateur in front of street art photographer, so it's like all just like fun and passion for
Yeah.
me. But it's been fun. It's I've met so many people. I've traveled to a lot of places because of it. Now, wherever I go in the world, I'll always do a street art tour. Like that's one of the things that I'll do when I get to a new location. It's just like I want to see the street art.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me to the next point, which is street art is the story of the people, like the local people. So like if you go to Italy, there's like the street art is telling you the story of the people in Rome or in
Mm-hmm.
Florence or wherever city you might be in. If I'm in San Francisco, the street art there is telling me about that community, etc. And I feel
Hmm.
like the street art kind of vibe that I know the best is the New York vibe. And it
Yeah.
definitely is a reflection of us. So I
Mm-hmm.
do feel like it's the voice of the people. Usually it's the voice of the marginalized people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Um, and it's always like, it's a little bit contrarian. So it's like, I definitely feel like it's like, um, it's raising to the surface issues, concerns, what's on the mind of the average person that
Mm-hmm.
maybe doesn't have another way to make their voice heard. So
Yeah.
that's I feel how it intersects with my work, because I feel like that's a lot of what I do is I'm trying to always be listening to some of the underrepresented voices, the underestimated voices, the people who are kind of in the margins.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of intersection there.
absolutely. Yeah, we had a wonderful time looking at street art down in New Orleans. We thought it was really fascinating, especially mostly, well, it's not mostly, but it's large black and ethnic population down there. But we had so
Mhm.
much fun just seeing the messages. There's messages in each one, and
Yeah.
kind of
Mhm.
deciphering them and understanding them is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been down there. My niece used to live in New Orleans, and it was really funny. But like usually I just Google like where's the street art, and sometimes it takes me to some shady places to say the least, and some dark alleys. And she was like, I don't even know where that is, and we like got in the car and we went, and then like we turned, like we couldn't find it, and like suddenly we turned the corner and it was like, oh my god, it was like there it was, all of it. And it was really
Yeah.
fun, and she got into it too, so it was a really nice experience that we shared together.
I love that. That is so very cool. And I always say, when people, business folks are also creatives, it always gets me super excited because that's how I can feel like myself. I'm very much a business mind, a creative's heart. And so coming together and bringing those two loves, I think is so important and very special. So I'm excited that you're doing that. And you talked a little bit about, not having the role models that you wanted to see for yourself growing up, but then also you've had lots of different kind of diverse corporate and personal experiences. So I would like to know, what was the most transformative moment in your personal life that really led you to launch your company, Boldly Speaking?
Yeah, so that's an interesting story. I would say, for context, I was one of the people who was laid off in the tech industry last year,
Mm,
and it was mostly that experience, or that I guess that event that led to the start of Boldly Speaking. But it was something that I was thinking about. So I'm one of those people, like I love New York. I'm a New Yorker through and through. We talked about that before we got on, that I'm a New Yorker. But I also love traveling. I love seeing the world. And I've visited a lot of places where I'm like, I could totally see myself living here. And
mm.
and there's a couple of places in particular that I've been hoping to explore as sort of like a chapter three of Hady's life. And I'm like, oh, maybe this could be where chapter three happens.
Yeah.
Now we knew Columbus
So,
has got to be really high on that list somewhere, right?
but yeah, so I would say, I keeping that in the back of my mind, that I wanted to transition to something that would allow me to start to plan for like what happens next. I kind of was always like, had that little thought in the back of my mind, like, boy, if I could do this like consulting thing, or this coaching thing, or this, speaker thing, that could be the thing that kind of would get me to where I want to be. And and I could just kind of transition there. Well, life had other plans, and it was like a hard cutover. So there was like really no transition time. It was like, today I was the head of equality at a tech company, and then the next day I was like the founder and CEO of my own, you know my own company, my own business. And it's been an interesting journey so far. I'm about 18 months into it. Probably even a little bit more. I would say I'm almost 2 years into it. And I definitely have been building the plane as I've been flying it. And
Yeah.
it's also been an extremely, like, just challenging market. And I would say, DEI is definitely in the crosshairs of a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
and companies and organizations. So it's just kind of been the perfect storm, but not like in the good way, but in the bad way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey. I'm fortunate that like I had severance pay and savings that I could use to learn, like as I've been learning.
Yeah.
And I've also like taken on like part-time work to supplement that. So
Hmm.
it's been very interesting. Like I could not have predicted where I am today if we could have bet money on like what would you be doing 2 years from now, and it would not have been this, none of this.
Yeah.
But here I am, and and like yeah, it kind of the impetus was getting laid off, but the spark was there, and I just needed like something to really get it going, and so that was it. That was the perfect time to just do it.
We applaud you. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I have a almost very similar story because I spent 30 plus years in that corporate space and not having a great time as a black woman trying to figure out what my leadership was, and everyone's telling me I'm not the right kind of leader because I didn't lead like the white men that were above me. And so it was very challenging on so many ways, and I told my husband one day, I was like, I can't do this anymore. We gotta do our own thing. And he's like, I always will bet on you. And that was super important and empowering to me. And so I'm on year 3 of this entrepreneur's journey, so I completely understand where you're coming from and what that feels like.
Yes.
But I also know that there are people watching you and cheering you on, rooting you on, and also learning from you in that prospect. So it's kind of really exciting for me to hear that you're really moving forward with boldly speaking, because it does empower underrepresented people and really help people know how to advocate for themselves, because it's very tough to navigate corporate spaces sometimes. So I would love to hear, like, what are some of the most common challenges that you hear from the people that you are trying to empower through boldly speaking, and how do they overcome those challenges?
Yeah. I think a lot of people are they're very fearful. They're very afraid of, stepping out and taking up space and using their voice. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think some of it, like I said, is fears. Some of it is like judgment, like, what are people going to think? A lot of us have cultural conditioning that says you got to be humble, you got to lay low, you got to, respect authority, you got to be grateful for what you have. Don't rock the boat, just be, kind of stay in line type thing. And I feel like that is what I think we get in our way. So that's a long way of saying, I think we get in our way the most, more than anything else. And people have to kind of unlearn some of the things that they believe. So there's a lot of these limiting beliefs that they have to kind of shake off and kind of eliminate from their thinking. And then they have to adopt these mindsets that are more liberating. And it's like, I'm not perfect. I mean, I know all the answers, but there are a whole lot of people talking in corporate that don't have all the answers.
That's true.
And that are not the experts either.
Real talk.
Like we come to find out, I'm sure you knew it, and I knew it too. It was like, I believe that everything everybody was saying, and then come to find out these people didn't know what they were talking about half the time. So, but they convinced you they did. They looked pretty convinced. They sounded pretty convincing. So I'm like, okay.
That old saying, say it with confidence and don't believe anything you say, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
So true.
So I do feel like we need to adopt these mindsets that allow us to take more risk, to be more unapologetic, to be less fearful, to advocate for ourselves, to own our narratives, to step into our power, to reclaim our power. I feel like it's there. It's just we need to claim it. And many of us are I think some people are even afraid of succeeding, to be honest with you. It's like, I don't know what to do with all of this. Like what happens if it works out?
Right.
It's actually a good thing.
Right.
But it can be, I think, quite intimidating. And there's a lot of statistics too. This doesn't come from nowhere, that I do feel like there is evidence that men don't like women who self-advocate, and women don't like women who self-advocate and self-promote. Like that's just, it's frowned upon. It's like, well, who do you think you are? Check her out. Like, who does she think she is? And in
Yep.
Spanish, like even in the Latina community, I think it's even magnified because it's like this notion of being humble. And we have a saying in Spanish, calladita te ves más bonita. This notion of like remaining like, that don't talk until someone talks to you. Just, I'll let you know when I need your input type thing. And
Yeah.
that just is not working. It's
Yeah.
not working for us.
It's not working. You right about that, sister.
You're talking about
Yeah.
your culture and how you're brought up. What roles does your culture identify as Latina play in how you approach leadership and advocacy?
Yeah, I would say one thing. Well, there's a lot of things about the Latina culture. I think I've kind of already shared some of the not so great things, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot about this humbleness and calladita and like don't rock the boat and all those are things that I really try to. Those are beliefs that I try to hit on like right away because I'm like, well, is this serving us? Is this true? Is this, what is this story we're telling ourselves? Is it a true story? So I try to hit on those first.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But there are like some really positive and amazing things about being Latina. And I think one of the greatest things is community. We're really good with community. We're a very warm people. Like I remember when I used to go to Puerto Rico for business. This was like a couple of jobs ago. And I remember my manager was a white man. And I was like, I'm just letting you know now that everyone's going to kiss you, but this is not about you. It's about our culture. Like, this is how
Mm-hmm.
we greet people. So just letting you know. So he was just like, okay, thank you for letting me know. Cause he was like very uncomfortable with the whole thing, but like, we're just kissing everybody. And it's like, no, it's no big thing, no big deal.
Yeah.
But I think we are warm people and we're very inclusive. We're like, come on, it's everybody. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I lived in Bolivia, we wouldn't eat until everybody sat down. And sometimes that meant the food was cold. And as a Puerto Rican, that is not good. I remember my aunt came to visit me and she was like, what is happening right now? I'm like, well, we're waiting for everybody to sit down before we eat. And she's like, but the food is going to get cold. I'm like, I know it is. But we still have to wait. Like that's still a thing. And so it's just interesting because like, even within the Latino community, there's obviously differences. We're not a monolith, but where I lived in Bolivia, it was very community based. So I think as a Puerto Rican, we're more on the individualistic vibe because we're like more closely related to the United States where we do a lot of things on the individual level as opposed to the community level. But generally speaking, I think we're very good with the community. And I think that helps. That is very helpful. Pouring into other people is something we do. There is not one Latina. I have a show called Latinas Front and Center where I interview Latina trailblazers. There is not one Latina that I talk to that isn't trying to do something to bring other Latinas along.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is like, I'm here and I'm talking and I'm doing the work I'm doing because I want to give back to the next generation. I want to give back to my community.
Yeah.
So we are generous people. We are warm people. We are community, people that like community, like building community. And I think all of those are really positive things. And I think all of that shows up in how I show up.
Yeah, I love that so much because I have so many amazing, beautiful Latinas who are my friends here in Columbus, and I can agree with all of what you're saying. It's like we very much are here championing each other, cheerleading for each other. Like, how do we help, move that next generation forward? And we're all calling ourselves community aunties and community tias, and I love that so much, and that's really important to me. I feel like I'm in that legacy level, if you get past 50, you're like, I'm now the wise old sage, huh? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm right there with you. And I actually have something on my website. I'm going to try to look it up while we talk. But I wrote this recently. Well, recently, it's not that recently. It's a couple of months ago. But I think it is so true and it is aligned with what you're saying. It's a quote. And it says, I say yes to opportunities that align with the impact I want to make. So that is where my heart is at. I want to make impact. It's not about me. It's about us and how we move all of us forward.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I appreciate the work that you're doing. I always tell people all the time, I'm in a mindset of always pay it forward. If somebody's helping you, great. Don't try to pay them back. Pay it forward. And that way we can keep that momentum going and help as many people as possible. So I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And
Yeah. And I think, oh, go ahead.
no, please, please.
I was just going to say that sometimes I feel like for some people that could be a scary proposition,
Yeah.
because if you don't have an abundant mindset, you might feel like there's not enough for all of us. So like, how am I going to shine the light on you? Who's going to shine the light on me? But you have to
Yes.
trust. I think
Yes.
part of being this abundance and like manifesting good things is like you trust that like you do good for others and it's going to come back to you. There's a saying in Spanish. I'm gonna like not say it perfectly, but it's like hoy yo por ti, mañana tú por mí. Like I'm gonna do something for you today, and tomorrow you're gonna do something for me. So we're always
Hmm.
gonna be lifting each other up, and it's just like a circular thing that we're like constantly in this circle of giving each other and lifting each other up. So that's how I look at community and working, lifting other people and paying things forward.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. I love that the lifting up piece. One of the things that I thought was so fascinating, about reading about you is that you've done work with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women. And that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. I was the board chair for 6 years for an organization called Healing Broken Circles here that particularly worked inside
Mm.
the incarceration and institutional of justice. And so it was something that was so incredibly important to me and how we worked together with the folks who were returning citizens and those who, unfortunately, the recidivism rate was high and a lot of times. And so one of
Mhm.
the things that was so important to me was how do you create a pathway so that people don't have to go back to a life that they left because of the stigma. I've been working with companies too, trying to say, if somebody's paid their time, why are you still punishing them by if they put it on their application, you immediately throw it in the garbage? Like that is not something that makes sense if you want to help people move forward. So I'm just curious about, some of the stories that you've been able to, experience with these women and how that has changed you as well with the lifting up.
Yeah, I will share two things. I'm going to share like a specific story and then just sort of like a generality. But so I actually, just for context, the 2 years that I lived in Bolivia, I went to a jail there about 2 or 3 times a week, and I had like I would call it a support group. They might have called it a prayer group, but I tried not to like kind of force religion on anybody, even though I
Mm-hmm.
was there with a religious organization. Our ministry was not really like a religious ministry, it was a ministry of presence. So it was
Mm-hmm.
just us being there. That was really the totality of our ministry, was just showing up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not really about like religion, but it was just like, I'm here and I'm here for you. And that's it. You can
Mm-hmm.
count on me, like, and whatever, yeah, and no judgment type thing. So I will say one funny story and then I'll tell you something else. But the funny story is that one time one of the women in the prison told me that they loved, or maybe either they loved or she loved, but they loved when the days that I would come to visit them, because it would make them forget they were in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So that was really like, that touched my heart, because um it made, like, usually you don't get that kind of feedback, or you don't know like what kind of impact you're making. But like
Yeah.
she was generous enough to share with me that the days that I was there were like, they looked forward to it and it was fun for them, and
Mm.
it felt like, they got to do something different and they would forget about their worries for a little while. So that was really touching. But I would say, generally speaking, I think one of the surprises that I got from that experience was that it was a very mutual ministry or friendship. And I would say, like, for me, my ministry was like I said, ministry of presence. I'm just here for you. But they were there for me too. And they deeply cared about me. Like, they would be like, you look sick, Patty, you should go home.
Mm.
Or like, hey, like, you look sad. What happened? What's going on that you look so sad today?
Mm.
Like, they cared about me.
I love
And
that.
I don't think I ever expected that the friendship was going to be mutual.
Mm.
Like, all the time in formation, we had like several months of formation before we traveled there. And they always told us, like, you're the gift. You're not there to bring money. You're not there to bring, like anything, like physical gifts. It's just you show up and that's it. You're the gift. And so I kept thinking I was the gift. Well, I was not expecting that they would be a gift to me in
Mm.
return. And that was like something, surprising and also obviously pretty transformative for me.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think that's what's so important about the work is like you just decided to show up and be present. And then the gift that came from that is so beautiful. And I always tell people just show up and be in that space with people, and you can make a huge difference just being in that space. And so I
Yep.
love both of those stories so much that you just shared because I think it's beautiful. You know,
Thank you.
you're
It's
welcome.
a time like I'll never forget my time there. Obviously, it's not quite 10 years, but it's almost 10 years since I was there. And there were so many lessons that I learned from that experience that I brought back with me. And like, 10 years is a long time. So I'm like, oh, am I still like practicing all the things? Like,
Yeah.
but, but yeah, like, I try to remember what it was like to be there because it was a really, it just changed my life to be there. There's just so much that I learned about myself and about being in community with other people and about like material things, like we're such a materialistic society here in the United States, and
Yeah.
like everything is about me, 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 me.
Yeah.
And like I explained earlier, they're very much a we kind of community, and they're not that materialistic because they don't have a lot. They don't have a lot of money and they don't have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So they have very little, but they're very generous with what they have. And that also like caught me by surprise. I'm like, they're more generous with the little they have than the people I
Yes.
know here that have a lot of money. People,
Yes.
so it just
Yeah.
kind of blows your mind. Like it's
Yeah.
not what you think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think you're so right, and I think that happens a lot in families of color and different cultural and ethnic backgrounds. Because I know that was for me. I grew up in the South in Southern Georgia, and that's how my grandma was, and the people in our neighborhood. If somebody needed something to eat, you come over to the house, get something to eat. You need some clothes, we
Yep.
gonna see what we got and give you some clothes. So it's
Yep.
just a natural thing to want to say, hey, how do we help each other and really take care of each other? And I think
Yes.
that's important. So, that 10 years ago, even though you had that experience, I think obviously, clearly, with what you're doing now, you're bringing that experience to the different ways that you're showing up for people now. I love the fact that
Hmm.
you have been recognized with LinkedIn as a top coaching and mentoring voice, and so
Hmm.
as a Latina, that's a beautiful thing because we need to see more representation on the platform and especially in professional arenas. And so I would love to know, like, what has been your experience using this platform as a way to amplify marginalized perspectives and voices?
Yeah, I would say when I started, I've been active on LinkedIn for many years now. I can't remember exactly when I started, but I would say it was like probably even before COVID. So let's say 2019. So it's been a little bit now. But when I started, I don't know that there were that many Latinas sharing their stories. There's obviously a lot more now. Like, oh my God, like there's we are a population, a demographic that's growing a lot, like leaps and bounds. And a lot of people are coming out of their shell, and they're not being shy, and they're not holding back, and they're finding that voice and that strength to be a little bit more brave and more bold. So I would say like there's a lot of us now out there that that I can see, at least in my network. I know a lot of Latinas that are out there, but I feel like it is important to tell our stories. I don't think our stories are told enough, and
Yep.
to share experiences from our unique perspective is also really important.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian, you said it earlier that you didn't even notice because you always had people around you that were like you, and
Hmm.
maybe that took an interest in you. You didn't even notice that was
Yeah.
something that other people struggled with. And I feel like, you're not alone. Other people don't know it either. And other people may have heard of it, but like if you get out there and you tell like a real raw story, people are like, that really happened to you? I'm like, yes, that really
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
happened to me.
Yep.
Someone really told me to comb my hair. That really happened.
Girl,
That
listen.
really, someone really questioned, like told me. I make a list of like the really major microaggressions, and
Yeah.
like like to some people it would be like like that's hyperbole. It's like, no, it's not. That
No,
really happened.
it really
That really
happens.
happened to me. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it is important to get our stories out there, our perspectives, our point of views. Like companies, I would always say the case for DEI, for more diverse and inclusive culture, work cultures or company cultures, is that you're going to get better ideas, better products,
Mm-hmm.
more innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's true of us sharing our perspective on LinkedIn. Like we're adding value to a platform that maybe wasn't necessarily designed for us in mind, but like we're
Mm-hmm.
here, so we gotta share our stories too. So
That's right.
that's really important.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
I also feel like you never know who's watching.
That's
So
right.
I get a lot of people that will come to me at a conference or an event, and they're like, "You're Hady. I know you from LinkedIn. I follow you." And I'm like, that was like really weird in the beginning. Now I'm like I feel like I'm a rock star. Like I'm somewhat like
Okay.
LinkedIn famous. But like in the
Yes.
beginning, I was like, wow, that's weird. And I'm like, and
Uh-huh.
what's your name? Because I don't know you. So like, tell me about you. But like now I lean into it a little bit more, and I'm like, what do you like about it? What is it that inspires you?
Mm-hmm.
What is
Yeah.
it that really resonates with you? Because that's helpful to me to
Mm-hmm.
understand the content that is needed.
Yeah. Well, know it's your hard work that put you in that position in the first place, so it's well deserved.
That's right.
You mentioned earlier about some of the negative advice you got. Um, and on a positive side, if you could give one piece of advice to young professionals from marginalized backgrounds striving to find their voice, what would that be?
It would absolutely be that you are enough.
Mm.
I feel like so often we get the messaging that we need to be fixed, that somehow we're broken, that somehow we're not enough, or we're too much, or we're too disruptive, or we're too loud, or I've been told all these things. And, you start to believe it, that it can be quite harmful in that if you believe these things, then you silence yourself, then you
Yeah.
shrink yourself,
Yeah.
then you dim your light, and that's not good for anybody. So I would say that you are enough as you are, you're perfect as you are, and just shine your light and bring your strengths, share your strengths with the world, all the things that you're good at, put it forward, and like your differences are your superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. That's 100% on spot on. So, oh my gosh, Hady, this has been such a great conversation. Can't believe time is flying so fast, but I want to make sure that people know how to connect with you and to follow you on your socials and all those things. So how can people get in touch with you and continue to amplify your message?
Of course. So I have a website, and it's boldlyspeakingllc.com. So the LLC is like, I'm a limited liability corporation. So boldlyspeakingllc.com, pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find out all about like my products and services there. And I have all my like podcasts, interviews that I've done there, articles that I've written. And I also have all the interviews that I do with Latinas front and center there. So I think it's a great resource.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One cool thing that I'm doing right now is that I'm going to be doing an ERG leadership boot camp in the new year.
Okay.
And I'm looking for people who might be interested in joining the boot camp. So if you're interested, you should like find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn just under my name, Hady Mendez, and you can send me a direct message and let me know that you're interested, and I can send you more information, or I can set up a call and find out what you're looking for and make sure it's a good fit for you.
I love all of that. And for our listeners, we will put all of that in our show notes and make sure it's all together for sure. So I'm super
Amazing.
excited about you being here. You have been so amazing. And I remember you said you were writing a book. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I actually, so I joined a book coaching program that started in October. So I'm about 6 or 7 weeks in. And I am just about finished with my outline, which means that I'm going to start writing very soon, probably in
Oh,
the
so
next week or
exciting.
so.
Oh my gosh.
And I just have to say that I wasn't sure like if there was a there, but I'm sure there's a there now. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's flowing. It's just like it's all coming together, and it feels good. And I think I have a good title, and it's just beautiful. And I just feel like it is coming at a perfect time. It's a
Mm-hmm.
really great thing for me to focus on. And I think I'm hopeful that it's gonna make a difference for future generations, for people that are that are looking for a little bit of inspiration, or maybe to hear about someone else's experience and what worked for them. So I'm really excited.
Well, I'm excited for you too, and I guarantee you it will be transformative for not only you, but for the folks who will get a chance to read it as well. So you're going to definitely
Amen.
keep us posted, and we're going to be following you and making sure when it comes out, we can help celebrate and spread the word for sure.
Thank you. I really appreciate your support. It was so lovely to be here with both of you today. So thanks for the invite.
Well, you're
Thank
very,
you.
very welcome. And Brian, could you tell folks how to get in touch with us?
Yeah, you can follow us on Facebook, or you can reach us at enbwpodcast@gmail.com.
All right. Well, that is our show for today. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to our amazing guest, Ms. Hady Mendez. And thank you for talking to us and being a very bold speaker, because we loved hearing it and loved being with you all. So everyone, have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.